In the early 1950s, Japan's skies were silent. After World War II, civil aviation had been banned, airports were idle, and flying commercially was nothing more than a memory. But in December 1952, as the American occupation ended and the nation began rebuilding, a small group of investors took a bold step. They founded a company with a long name and an even longer vision, Japan Helicopter and Airplane Transports Company. The name wasn't symbolic. Helicopters were literally all they had. In February 1953, the company operated its first commercial flight. Moving cargo by helicopter between Tokyo and Osaka, it wasn't glamorous, but it was historic. Later that same year, something even more significant happened. Japan saw its first scheduled passenger flight piloted by a Japanese aviator since the war. The aircraft was modest, an 8-seat de Havillandove, but it marked the return of Japanese aviation. By 1954, regular passenger service was established on the Tokyo-Osaka route, a corridor that would eventually become one of the busiest air routes in the world. Growth followed quickly. Douglas DC-3 aircraft joined the fleet, routes expanded, and in 1957, the company adopted a new name that reflected national ambition, All Nippon Airways. At the same time, another small carrier was emerging. Far East Airlines, founded just one day earlier, focused on overnight cargo flights along the same Tokyo-Osaka corridor. In 1958, the two companies merged, creating Japan's largest private airline at the time. The newly formed ANA inherited its I-ATAC code, its branding, and most importantly, momentum. Through the 1960s, ANA expanded rapidly. It introduced jet aircraft, expanded its domestic network from Hokkaido to Kyushu, and even acquired the YS-11, Japan's first post-war commercial aircraft. Yet despite its growth, ANA faced a massive constraint. International flights were monopolized by the national carrier, Japan Airlines. ANA was grounded, not physically, but strategically. That limitation would define its mindset for decades. Forced to master domestic efficiency, and not refined operations, frequency, and cost control in ways few global airlines ever had to. And when the door to international flying finally opened, that hard-earned discipline would make all the difference. But the real transformation didn't begin with permission to fly abroad. It began with a gamble on an airplane that didn't yet exist. By the early 2000s, All Nippon Airways had become a disciplined, profitable airline with global ambitions. It had infrastructure, experience, and capital, but it needed something more. A tool that could reshape how Japan connected to the world. That tool appeared in April 2004, when Boeing officially launched a revolutionary new aircraft program. The airplane was called the Dreamliner. Before a single prototype flew, ANA shocked the industry by becoming the launch customer for the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. The initial order, 50 aircraft, with options for 50 more. The price tag ran into the billions. Analysts were skeptical. Airlines rarely bet this heavily on unproven technology. But ANA wasn't thinking short-term. The Dreamliner promised something uniquely suited to Japan's geography and travel patterns. It offered roughly 25% better fuel efficiency than older wide-body aircraft, long-range capability for trans-Pacific flights, and critically a size that sat perfectly between narrow-body jets and massive long-haul aircraft. Japan stretches more than 3,000 kilometers from north to south. Flights from Tokyo to Hokkaido or Okinawa are too long for turboprops, but too short to justify massive aircraft like the 747 or 777. The 787 solved that problem. It could fly long distances efficiently without excess capacity, turning marginal routes into profitable ones. Internationally, the implications were even bigger. The aircraft made it economically viable to launch direct long-haul flights from secondary Japanese cities. Bypassing congested megahubs, that meant fewer connections, lower costs, and a better passenger experience. A rare triple win in aviation. Of course, the program wasn't smooth. Development delays stretched for years. Technical problems emerged. Most notably, the lithium-ion battery fires that grounded the entire global fleet in 2013. Many airlines would have reconsidered. ANA didn't. Instead, it doubled down. As Boeing's closest partner, ANA worked directly with engineers, provided operational feedback, and helped refine cabin layouts and systems. When the crisis hit, ANA wasn't sidelined. It was in the room helping fix the problem. That collaboration built trust and ensured priority delivery slots once production resumed. When the first Dreamliner was finally delivered on September 21, 2011, it went to ANA. And when the first commercial flight took off a month later, it was an ANA aircraft carrying passengers from Tokyo to Hong Kong. That first flight was in TA milestone. It was a starting gun for one of the most dominant fleet strategies in airline history. Most airlines treat new aircraft as tools. ANA treated the Dreamliner as a platform, one that could be adapted, scaled, and optimized across an entire network. While competitors cautiously added a handful of 787s, ANA kept ordering more. Year after year, the fleet grew, and with every delivery, its advantage widened. The strategy rested on three pillars: timing, partnership, and patience. As the launch customer, ANA gained years of operational experience before most airlines even received their first unit. Pilots were trained early, maintenance teams gained familiarity, and procedures were refined while others were still learning. That head start translated into smoother operations and lower costs. Second was the deep relationship with Boeing. ANA wasn't just buying airplanes, it was influencing how they were built. Cabin ergonomics, maintenance access, and operational workflows were all shaped with real-world input. The final pillar was long-term vision. Despite delays, cost overruns, and public skepticism, ANA stayed committed. Instead of pulling back, it expanded. Over time, experience compounded, costs dropped, and the payoff became undeniable. Crucially, ANA didn't settle for a single version of the Dreamliner. It made a decision no other airline fully replicated, operating all three major variants as part of one integrated system. The 787-8 became the backbone for long, thin international routes and high-density domestic services. Its efficiency allowed ANA to serve destinations that couldn't support larger aircraft while maintaining strong margins. The 787-9 evolved into the fleet's workhorse, slightly longer, carrying more passengers, but nearly identical in per-seat efficiency. It became ideal for high-demand international routes to Europe and North America, and even heavily traveled domestic sectors. Then came the 787-10, the largest variant. While its shorter range limited ultra-long routes, its capacity made it perfect for high-volume regional and domestic markets. ANA later reconfigured it specifically for domestic use, replacing older wide-bodies with a more efficient, modern alternative. By treating the Dreamliner family as a modular system rather than individual aircraft, ANA achieved something rare in aviation: flexibility without complexity. Crews could transition easily, maintenance was standardized, and spare parts were shared across dozens of aircraft. And when you look at the raw numbers, this strategy doesn't just look smart, it looks almost unbelievable. By 2025, the scope of ANA's Dreamliner strategy became impossible to ignore. The airline operated 88 Boeing 787 aircraft, making it the largest Dreamliner operator on Earth by a wide margin. To put that in perspective, ANA alone operated more 787s than many major airlines operate total wide-body aircraft. It had nearly 50% more Dreamliners than the second largest operator worldwide. This wasn't incremental dominance, it was structural. Scale changed everything. Pilot training became standardized across a massive fleet. Maintenance operations were centralized and optimized. Spare parts were purchased in bulk, reducing per-unit costs. Each new aircraft became cheaper and easier to integrate than the last. These efficiencies compounded year after year, creating a competitive moat that smaller operators simply couldn't cross. On domestic routes, the impact was dramatic. High-density configurations allowed wide-body aircraft to replace multiple narrow-body flights, lowering cost per seat while increasing comfort. Routes like Haneda-Sapporo, Haneda-Fukuoka, and Haneda-Okinawa saw dozens of Dreamliner flights per day, handling demand levels that would overwhelm traditional fleets. Internationally, the flexibility paid off again. ANA could match aircraft size precisely to route demand, smaller variants for thinner routes, larger ones for major hubs without sacrificing efficiency or crew commonality. This wasn't just fleet growth, it was network engineering at a national scale. Meanwhile, competitors struggled to replicate the model. Operating a few Dreamliners didn't deliver the same benefits. Without volume, Economies of scale never materialized. NASA's early commitment locked in advantages that only grew stronger over time. And remarkably, even after building the world's most dominant Dreamliner fleet, ANA isn't slowing down. Looking ahead, ANA's strategy remains consistent: long-term thinking, disciplined execution, and smart fleet balance. The airline plans to operate at least 100 Dreamliners by 2030, representing roughly one-third of its total fleet. At the same time, it's modernizing around the edges. New narrow-body aircraft handle short-haul demand. Ultra-long-range wide-bodies cover the highest-capacity intercontinental routes. But the Dreamliner remains the core, the aircraft that ties everything together. What makes this story remarkable isn't just the number of planes. It's the patience behind the plan. In 2004, ANA committed billions to an aircraft that existed only on paper. It endured delays, technical failures, and years of uncertainty. It resisted pressure to abandon the program when problems surfaced. And 2 decades later, the results are visible across 3 continents. Petite Dreamliners in daily operation. Dozens of cities connected, millions of passengers carried each year. Show a fleet strategy that competitors still struggle to understand, let alone replicate. ANA didn't win by reacting faster than others. It won by committing earlier, thinking longer, and executing relentlessly. In aviation, timing is everything. And I'm proved that sometimes the boldest move isn't chasing the present, it's betting on the future before anyone else sees it. So the next time you see a Dreamliner lifting off from Japan, remember, it's not just an airplane. It's the result of a 20-year decision that reshaped how an entire nation flies.